Believe it or not, this changed my life, and I truly believe it will change yours. This video is about me using my 3 different types of notebooks and why you should too. And no, this isn't a video about pocket notebooks or planners. I'm not jumping on that trend. We must first touch on the objections. Why are people against writing things down on paper versus writing things down on their phone or their laptop? You might not care, so I'm gonna put a timestamp. You can skip this part. To speak about those objections and why you should use a notebook, here's 3 reasons. First reason, if you're writing something down on an actual physical notebook, it won't ever get lost. I've written countless ideas, thoughts, class notes in Word documents, never to be opened again. So sometimes I'll be reading through my notebook and be like, oh, that was a really good idea. And then I'll act on it. But never have I opened up a Word doc and started scrolling. It just does not happen. But I will read through notebooks. Reason number 2, I've had so many opportunities to really jump in, use my phone's notepad to-do list when I'm out on vacations, traveling, yet I can never make it work. I jump on my notepad, then before I know it, I'm scrolling through Instagram and I wasted the morning. It's horrible to use your phone. You will get thrown in that rabbit hole and you'll get lost in social media, your email, doesn't matter. It's not productive. Just use pen and paper. Reason number 3, you can actually remember things. When you're typing, it's so fast, you're kind of mindlessly transcribing. You're not truly thinking about what you're writing. Writing is a thought process because it's so slow. You have to not only formulate your sentence before you write it down. After you formulate the sentence, that's 1 repetition. You'll go a 2nd repetition and say it out loud as you write it down. Best case scenario, as you're typing, you may repeat it in your head once, but more than likely you're typing mindlessly. So obviously, writing on notepads will make you remember things. It will give you those repetitions. So it's almost as if you did the studying 2 or 3 times or the lecture notes 2 or 3 times. Way better for memory, and this is seen in studies. Everybody knows writing helps you remember. I took this advice when I was in college about 8 years ago. I used to write on computers because that's what all my classmates did. I got to school, I took out my laptop, I listened to the professor, and I transcribed. But I never realized till I saw a random video talking about memory, about how writing on a notepad will help you remember. So I put the computer to the side, took out a notebook and a pen, kind of like a freak because everybody uses a laptop nowadays, and I wrote on notepads. I would carry these super chunky notepads. They were super heavy. They weighed down my backpack. For some reason I would still carry my laptop even though I didn't use it in class. And yeah, helped me out a ton. If you look around, you'll see a bunch of people taking notes on their computers. You'll see people get distracted and be on different websites on their computers, get text notifications, be doing all sorts of things during lecture. But when I had my notepad out, I was there to work. My notepad didn't bring out notifications. It didn't distract me. I couldn't hop on Amazon. So 1, it just actually kept me focused. It wasn't filled with distractions. Additionally, I saw my memory when it came to lecture notes drastically increase. 1, my test scores went up, and that's factual. This is an objective fact, not my opinion. Try it for yourself. Trust me, you will not regret it. And you might think to yourself, well, didn't you just mention everybody uses laptops? Because most people do. Aren't those people excelling in school as well? Aren't some of the top students using laptops? So who cares? You can do well with a laptop or a notebook. And that's where you're wrong. There's actually an organization. It's called the National Assessment of Organizational Progress. I'll try to write it down here below in case I mispronounced it, but this organization tracks test scores from students of all ages. Its test scores have been marginally increasing for the better half of the last 40 or 50 years. Basically since the 1970s. Our test scores have risen, showing us that the education system is getting better. Who knows? It's hard to say. The only concerning part is that it has been increasing from the 70s up to about the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, test scores have actually plateaued. Not only have they plateaued, in 2020, they dropped and have continued to do so. You might be thinking, well, why would they be dropping? Are resources getting worse? Teaching methods? Let's be honest. School systems have done nothing but improved. School systems have all the best resources, everything they could have at their disposal, all the studies, all the psychological facts. There's ways to learn 20 times faster. That's in my last video. If anything, information has just gotten extensive. We know everything there is about learning, or at least a lot more than we did prior. So why are test scores taking a step back? Why are we actually seeing a loss in intelligence? intelligence. The only difference is technology. It's how we actually take notes and how we take tests. When I was growing up, you actually still use pen and paper for a lot of homework assignment and note taking. It's only when I got to college that really computers became super popular and they started to be seen more in high school. But now people in college, people are doing grad school, everybody's using laptops. There's not one single pen and paper in sight. You could argue it could be caused by something else, and the thing is, nobody truly knows. Who knows what the cause of this drop really is? Some people blame it on all sorts of things. It doesn't matter. All I will say is maybe technology might actually be our downfall here. And aside from this empirical data, there's kind of a funny anecdote when researching this video that I came across. I was talking to one of my good friends. She says her professor has seen the exact same trend as she's been teaching medical school for the past 10 years, and the last year was her worst, and this has been a trend for the past decade. And I mean, that's one professor. Who knows? That's one organization whose literal job is to track test data. I'm just saying, might not hurt to consider taking on good old pen and paper. All right, so now that we have the objections out of the way, let's talk about the 3 notebooks I like to use. And if you just got here because you skipped to this step, think about going back to that other part. It really is interesting. But let's start with notebook number 1. This is a dedicated work notebook. This is the straight work, no fun notebook. If you're in school, college, this would be your subject notebooks. I used to have one for every class. If you're in a career like myself, this would be your work notebook. Fun story, kind of why I actually like notebooks so much. It has to do with my work notebook. To give you a little backstory. So in my work, I'm one of the newest employees. Most employees in my role have been there for decades. I'm one of the newest and one of the youngest ever actually hired. The reason I mention this is because it being one of my first jobs out of college, I kind of just mimicked everybody else. What ended up happening when anybody had questions, and when I mean by questions, in my specific role, without giving away too much detail, there's a lot of procedures and policies that we're required to follow. I mean, thousands. This is all located in a centralized website. When an employee came into an obscure scenario where it wasn't day-to-day, not something you'd have memorized, you would ask the team, look through policy, and if all else failed, you'd ask a supervisor. Before you wanting to click away and thinking, what does this have to do with 3 notebooks? We're about to get there. This was my trend for about a year in the role. I've now been there about 3 years, over 3 years. For the first year, I did the same as every other employee. That's what they did. That's what I did. But then I stopped asking questions about 2 years ago. I haven't asked a question since. Whenever an obscure situation comes up now, I just know the answer. I chalked it up as, you know, I have a great memory, but what I realized is that employees who have been doing the job for 10 years couldn't remember these obscure policies I learned in a year. And at first, who cared? I just thought it was my memory. But then about 5 months ago, I told my boss I needed more notebooks. And he told me, why do you need notebooks? Kind of an annoyed voice because I bother him a lot, but he asked, why do I even need notebooks? And I told him, well, when I got hired, I received a few notebooks and they're full. So I'm expecting you guys to replace them. He said, well, we could get you notebooks. Who cares about that? But why are you using notebooks up in our job when everything's on a computer, all the procedures and policies are on a website? Why do you need notebooks? And then I told him, well, that's the equivalent of me saying, why are kids taking notes if all the answers are in textbooks? And he didn't think it was too funny, but then he kind of actually dug deep and asked, why are your notebooks even full to begin with? And I told him, well, when I got hired, I assumed that's what the notebooks were for. To write down notes about things we learned. And he said, no, we just get those as some kind of general gift basket of work supplies when we get hired, but nobody uses them. Actually, my boss has been there 10 years and he told me he's never seen anybody fill up one notebook, nonetheless all the notebooks. So then I was thinking, well, that's weird. I guess people don't really care to write down what they learn. He said, no, that's actually wrong. My assumption was wrong there. Turns out people do write things down. They write them down in OneNote, which by the way, I've never actually used, or Word docs, which I guess I used to use. Man, that's kind of when it hit me. It took me back about 7 years ago when I was a freshman and realized that writing things down in Word docs is worthless. You don't actually remember anything. There's barely a point in it. Why wouldn't you just take the extra second? Turns out it wasn't my memory after all. Kind of what I guess I should have known all along, because there's some pretty talented people at my job. It's more so that I was writing things down. I was taking the few minutes, as a bunch of studies have shown, and my own empirical empirical little experiments throughout my life have shown, having things written down makes you remember them. Actually, just writing things down. That's it. That's all it is. All those employees who wrote things down in Word docs or OneNote, they don't remember anything. They still ask the same questions. Maybe they ask a little less than some of the other people who don't write things down, but that's the issue. Them just figuring out an answer and passively moving along is the problem why they don't remember all those policies. And it's not that I have good memory, it's just that I took the time to just genuinely actively think about them and write them down on a piece of paper. And it's pretty crazy. I don't even look back at those notebooks. So something about writing things down is very powerful if you do it enough. And I'd highly encourage you to do it. That's one of the major reasons I made this video, because of that one realization. That not only did I realize this when I was in college, I realized this in my career, and I kind of wish I knew this sooner. When I was in high school, I think if I actually genuinely understood how to remember things, it would have made a huge difference. Nowadays, you have the world at your fingertips. If I had my own channel when I was growing up, all those consolidation of information of how to actually study, how to remember things, how to properly build habits, I mean, that would have changed my life. And I think it's crazy that I'm still very young, and I'm just so blessed to have found habit building and self-improvement I did, so I could try to share this with the world, because honestly, it's worth $1 million to be able to genuinely use your time wisely. Because why take class notes if you're not even doing anything, just transcribing? Hopefully that was convincing. So let's move on with notebook number 2. This one's a classic journal. There's lots of people who talk about journals, so hopefully this isn't mind-blowing to you. But I personally use journals for 2 reasons. I write my systems in them. My systems, if you don't know what that is, James Clear talks about that. Actually, kind of touched on it on a disciplined video prior. But basically, with building systems is where you have a goal and you break it down into systems. Those systems are the daily or weekly tasks, and I write those down on my journal so I know exactly what I'm supposed to be working on that day or that week. Additionally, I write what I call a journal entry, because the man in me doesn't want to call it a diary entry, but I write diary entries. Try to write them on a daily basis. Just getting out how I feel, having some perspective of what I've learned. It's just a classic diary entry. So that's my notebook number 2. You can go into detail a lot about journaling, but trust me, it's great. Try it out, get your thoughts out there. Pretty helpful way to just kind of decompress and kind of get your thoughts formulated into one nice little paragraph for the day. Before I forget, on notebook number 2, journaling, you should also try affirmations. I write down affirmation. I know it sounds silly, but affirmations really help you get the proper mindset so you can take action. Give you the foundation so that you can actually achieve your goals. Mindset's pretty important, so do affirmations. They're pretty helpful just to get you that proper mindset. But now to move on to notebook number 3. Notebook number 3 is actually can be anywhere from 1 to an infinite amount of notebooks. Notebook number 3 is what I call topic notebooks. I have a ton of topic notebooks. I actually have them behind me right now. So let me get those. Let's see. I keep them usually on my bookshelf at times, but today they're here. And I actually have another one over here. But topic notebooks are basically notebooks that are for a specific topic. I have one on YouTube over here that I recently made because trying to figure out how to make YouTube videos. But I have one on YouTube over there. I have an investing one. I have a mindset one. I have a self-help one. I have a business one. This one's been through the ringer. This one's one of the big topics I've tried to master. And I have my hobbies. Hobbies can include things like poker. That's a poker table right there. With poker flashcards, because I'm a study dork. I have a bunch of other hobbies that I don't want to touch on as of now, but yeah, a bunch of different topic notebooks. I like to label mine with tape. I don't know why I do that, because I'm too cheap to buy a labeler. Then I get index cards and I tape them over. These fall out every now and then. Topic journals and why you need them. Topic journals are important because if you learn something, you're going to forget it. Once more, if this video has taught you anything, you need to write things down so you can remember them. These are meant to be written on when I learn something. So for example, my business notebook, when I read all my business books, which by the way, reading, super important, I will go and write down everything I've learned. A summary of the Millionaire Fast Lane, for example. Then we could, there's tons of pages on notes. Honestly, if you ever need help on any books, just let me know. The Challenger Cell, a famous selling book. There's, like I'm saying, there's a ton of books in here. Literally the equivalent of a library in these 6, 7 books. Whatever you learn, I take the key quotes, the key breakthroughs, and then write them down. Because it will take me a decade, well, maybe not a decade, but it will take me a long time to read over all these shelves of books, and I think the camera cuts off at shelf 1. This is a 3-level shelf of books I've read and written down here. But if I ever want to learn about business, I don't have to read through all my books or try to remember or read all the little notes I wrote in the books or try to shift through them or spark note them. I just read this one composition book and I have about 10 years of knowledge in here. That's crazy. So if that doesn't make you want to write on topic notebooks, I don't know what will. Once more, it's literally just to remember things, and it could be for fun things, it could be for hobbies, it could be for YouTube, which honestly should technically be in the hobby section. Not really sure why I compartmentalized it that way. Either way, before I go on a tangent here, topic notebooks are important, and if you don't have any, you need to get some. Because if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't learn any topics now, I don't need a topic journal, I'm not reading about business, I don't care about that nonsense, then you should definitely get one, because that means you're not actively learning. You're not actively pursuing knowledge. Pursuit of betterment is kind of how we're wired. We're meant to get better. We're meant to be stronger. We're meant to be smarter. It's to survive. It's wired in us. This is something that you should be doing. If you don't have a topic journal, I recommend going to the store, buying one of these. During Black Friday and things like that, these go for 10 cents. So you can afford a gazillion of these. This is what I recommend you do if you do not have a topic journal. Get a cheap notebook anywhere and make one. I recommend, if you don't have one as of now, make a self-help one and start writing down everything you learn from things like YouTube. I mean, I'd be very pleased if you would subscribe to my channel and write in your notebook everything I teach you. But I mean, besides me trying to gain you as a subscriber, you should honestly just write down anything you find interesting or worth learning about. If it's not self-help, I mean, write down anything. Write down about poker, write down about pool, write down about weightlifting. Doesn't matter. Just learn. Actively learn. Trust me, you're gonna care once 10 years from now you feel like a genius because you know about all this assortment of random topics, and you're gonna seem like the life of the party. When people bring up something about like the French Revolution, you're like, I know that because I wrote it down when I was watching a random documentary, and you did too. So now you're that interesting guy. Not that the French Revolution might be that interesting to most people, but you get the gist. Also, obviously this channel is all about self-help and self-improvement. So I genuinely believe in trying to improve yourself. If you are into these types of videos, 1, subscribe, but 2, make notes. Make notes about what you're learning so you can actively do what you're learning. That's what's important in life, is actually doing what you learn. Not learning, but doing. And to do, you need to know. To know, you need to remember. To remember, you need to write in notebooks. So hopefully that convinces you as to why you should get 3 notebooks like I did. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you do have any questions whatsoever, leave them down below. Well, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. See you in the next one.